Hello and welcome. We'll be building this modular walkway, and you can change the number of stories it has, plus the railing. You can change how much railing it goes around it. So there are two customizations to this, and we'll be using geometry nodes for this. So let's begin. Okay, let's start by deleting everything in the default scene. And we'll try to build the walkway, rather a simple version of the walkway that will be just a straight one without any bends or uh, elevations. So if we are successful with that, we can then move on to a more complex one. I will be using curves for the purpose, but I won't directly use curves initially. I'll create the paths with edges and then convert them in geometry nodes to curves. So let's start by adding a single vertex. By default, it goes into the edit mode. So let's move it on the y-axis to, let's move it to 20 meters. This will be our direction of the pathway. And now move it on the y-axis towards a bit far. And now we'll build the shape of the pathway. So go into the top view, add another vertex. Make sure that your origin remains at 0, otherwise you'll have problems with the shape of the walkway. So let's start by extruding the vertex on the x-axis about 1 meter, and then towards the other side to -1 meters. This will be the top part of the walkway. So now we have two mesh objects. One is the top of the walkway and the other represents the direction of the walkway. So let's name them accordingly. Let's name this one path and the other one top. Let's go into geometry nodes, select the path, add a new geometry node, and since this is a mesh, we need to convert it to a curve. Secondly, add a curve to mesh. This accepts two arguments. So first one is the curve and the other one is the profile. So curve is the mesh object that represents the path of the pathway, and the other one is the profile. So the other is you need to add a object info node to select the top of the pathway. So this now needs to be converted to a curve as well. Let's duplicate mesh to curve, and this should now work. You now have a top part of the pathway. Our pathway also will have a bottom part. So again, go into the top view, and let's add the bottom part as well. In geometry nodes, UV mapping is an ongoing feature that's being added. So for now, it's pretty difficult to unwrap objects reliably. So what we're going to do to counter that is that we're going to build all the parts of the pathway separately, so that we can then join them finally inside geometric nodes. But uh, we won't be creating the whole profile in a single object. That will also help us in obtaining separate UV mappings for each part of the path. So I won't be modifying the top part of the pathway. I'll add another vertex, and being in the edit mode, let's move it on the Y to the bottom bit. Let's make this minus 0.2, and let's extrude it on the x-axis to 1, matching the width of the upper panel. And let's extrude it once more on the y-axis to 0. So okay, so let's symmetrize this on the y-axis. Let's add a mirror modifier, and this has symmetrizes, so that's applied. Go again into the edit mode, and let's bevel the corner vertices. Let's rename this to bottom part, rather just bottom. Let's create another collection to hold all the shapes. And again, going into the geometry nodes, let's select our original path and duplicate some of the nodes. To be specific, the object info node and mesh to curve node. We also need the curve to mesh node. And let's add a join node to join the two meshes. Notice that the join geometry node has an input that is different from the inputs to the other nodes. And this input means that you can connect as many uh, inputs to this node as you want. Let's change the curve for the second path to bottom. And let's add the join geometry output to our group output. Let's connect the profile curve input on our second copy to our profile path. Inputs are swapped, so let's correct these, and here you go. So you can notice that the bottom part has come on top, so we can fix this by just going into the edit mode for our bottom pattern mesh by selecting all the vertices and then select 3D cursor as our pivot point. Press R and Z and press 1 at T, RZ 180, and that will switch the bottom mesh to the correct position. Let's now add a circular shape that will represent a pipe going uh, along the pathway. So let's add a circle, reduce the vertices to 16, go into the edit mode, select all, scale it to your liking, and then move it towards the bottom. Let's adjust the size a bit. Let's add another circle. And this will be the railing, the hand railing that will be towards the sides of the pathway. Again, go into the edit mode, scale this to the appropriate size, move it to the appropriate location. This looks good. And let's now insert a single vertex on the center of this railing that would represent the vertical poles of the handrail. Let's move the origin to the selected. And let's add a single vertex, extrude it on the y-axis, this looks good. I'm going to add another circle for our handrail. This will be the bottom uh, border kind of. So let's go into the edit mode for the handrail and then duplicate the circle, move it on the y-axis to somewhere about here, reduce the size, and let's add another one down here. And let's bevel the vertical pole. Once done, you can apply the skin modifier, and let's go into the edit mode, select all of the vertices, press Ctrl A, and this looks good. Let's mirror this on the x-axis as well. We need to change the origin. Let's go into the edit mode, move the cursor to the world origin, and then set the origin of the geometry to the 3D cursor. This will move the other half to the correct position. Now let's add these to our path. Again, make a copy of the 3 nodes. Let's first rename the shapes so that we have so that it's easier to select them. This is our main pipe. This is the handrail. And these are the vertical poles. Let's first select the handrail. Add these to the join geometry nodes. You should have something like this. And notice we didn't mirror it to the other side, so that's why it's missing the half. So let's select the handrails, add a mirror modifier, and just apply it. And there we go. Let's duplicate once more. Select the main pipe. Make the relevant connections, and you should have a pipe running at the bottom of the pathway. Let's now add the vertical poles. For the vertical poles, we need to get points along the curve so that we can instantiate these poles on those points. So let's add a node called curve to points. And as an input, we'll provide the path curve. I'll be using the length feature for the distance between the poles. And once we get the points, we can then instance on points node. We can use the instance on point node to then instantiate our poles. Connect the points output from the curve 2 points to the input of instance 1 points, and then provide the instance, which will be an object info node, which will reference our vertical poles. So we just then need to uh, join these instances to the join geometry node. You can see that the orientation of the poles is not correct, so we need to get the orientation of each point and match that orientation to the pole that is being instantiated on that exact point. So we can do that by connecting the rotation from curve 2 points to the instance. Then you should get the correct orientation for the vertical poles. As you can see, the poles are too many, so let's increase the length, and this should be okay. So now we need something, some part of the path that should connect the pole to the pathway. So again, go to our shapes. Let's create another circle. Go into the edit mode. Let's reduce the size. Make it a bit larger than the pipe. And let's select these two edges. Scale it on the Y to 0. Let's extrude them on the Y as well. And let's create a face. And let's select all the faces and then extrude them on the Z axis to solidify this. Make it shade smooth. And this will be our clamping for the pipe. Let's instantiate the, let's duplicate the nodes for the handrail. And let's select the clamp. So as you can see that the clamps are being generated um, rather too close to each other. So let's increase the distance a bit. And this will also ensure that we have variations on the path. That's it for now. In the next part, we'll implement the same geometry nodes to a more complex pathway shape. And then in the third part, we'll then texture our model.